Okay, this one is a bit different. This is an investigation report of findings from a night investigation in a reputed haunted location. So let's see how this one goes. If you like it, please say, as I have many others that can be put into this format. If not, well, it was an experiment. An investigation was conducted at Kilhope lead mine on the 29th to 30th of October in 2005, in conjunction with the Weardale Gazette, in aid of a local charity for children. The weather conditions on the night were changeable, very windy, overcast for much of the time, and with periodic bursts of heavy rain. The temperature was warm for the time of year, but still cold. We had permission to investigate the general mine area, but in specific the mine shop and the mine office. We were asked not to venture up to the cottage, as Halloween props for the following day had been laid out there. Neither were we allowed down the mine itself. The group was split into two teams because of the numbers, half of whom started with myself in the mine shop on the official investigation of Kilhope lead mine. The remaining members were with Ros and Geoffrey Taylor in the mine office, learning various divination techniques. Each session was conducted in quiet, almost silent sessions. The room was constantly monitored with EMF and negative ion detectors, and temperature was periodically checked, especially when a report was received of a cold spot. Alleged sensitive reports were noted and compared with other reports later in the evening. The investigation at Kilhope mine began at 10 o'clock at night, with each of the sessions scheduled to last for 1 hour, followed by a rest period of 30 minutes, before the groups swapped over and commenced in the next phase of the night's activity. The final phase of the investigation was to be a visit to the medieval shieling on the hill above the mining complex at first light. At 8 p.m, before the investigation began, and while on the area of the washing floor, there was the distinct presence of a black and white horse with leather bags on its feet pulling a cart from the mine. Then, at 8:45, while on the balcony outside the mine shop, there was the sudden image of a man in a blue tabard and a cloak holding a sword with a large handle above the sight. He was accompanied by 2 dogs of the greyhound type, one black, one grey, and at roughly the same time there was a woman in a white dress with purple light coming from her hands. One psychic commented it had a holy well or a sacred Celtic feel to it. Immediately prior to the investigation, mine tallies were laid out in 3 locations to act as trigger objects, and a general last sweep of the area was conducted to check that everything was ready. Geoffrey, who is generally a skeptic, reported seeing the figure of a tall man in long johns wearing a pointed hat standing on the bed in the mine shop. And outside, between the 2 rooms, a torch battery drained unaccountably. This was a brand new and fully charged battery. This phenomenon occurred 3 times during the night, and everybody reported that their torch batteries did not seem to be lasting as long as usual. It was also discovered that digital cameras refused to work for a while in this area. In the middle room, the mining and mineral display, one of the tallies was discovered moved, and yet nobody had been in the room since they were set in position. The experiment was reset. Finally, a nightlight candle was found blown out, or rather, had the wick pulled out of the wax and laid across it. In the mine shop, which was the accommodation room for the lead miners at the mine, there was the sporadic presence of a small, skinny, malnourished boy of about 12 years old, who can be described as having a round face and close-cropped dark hair, and dressed like an adult, with a white shirt and black braces and a cloth cap. There were obvious black smudges on his face. He was later seen on a now non-existent platform up in the rafters looking down at us. There was also the presence of an older man sitting by the fire, looking at the fire, while smoking a white curved stem pipe with a small bowl. Reported activity in the mine shop included the sensation of cold noted by numerous members of the team at the far end of the table nearer to the window, although infrared thermometer recordings noted a constant temperature of 12 degrees. Even so, there were feelings of fluctuating coldness. No other such localized cold spots were detected in the room. Generally, the mine shop was not as active as had been hoped. There were 2 reports of the impression of a woman bustling through the building and fussing over the mess there. There are stories of some women working on the washing floor at Kilhope. The most constant phenomena was the cold spot at the table by the window. Almost all who sat there said it was cold, although infrared thermometer recordings did not measure any significant changes, that it felt as though somebody was sitting there beside them, and that it was uncomfortable there. At 1:10 in the morning, a mobile phone that had been turned off suddenly switched itself on for no reason. Psychic impressions in the mine office were the presence of an old scruffy man constantly muttering to himself. He was wearing a red handkerchief around his neck, a grubby white shirt and braces. He had spiky whiskers and short hair and was extremely irate about something. He was constantly telling people to go away. At the time that the spirit was in the area of the office, it became very cold with a temperature drop of 5 degrees centigrade. The presence of a small boy was noted, watching or following people about, and a clerk, aged 50-ish, was sensed at the desk. The workshops on dowsing discovered energies forming a definite corridor of whooshing energy between the wall cupboard and the front of the office desk. More than one individual commented on having the sensations of goose pimples felt by the cupboard and the safe, and cold shivers by the nearby door into the middle room. There was a recordable chill between the desk and the door. This was most prevalent around 11:15 in the evening. However, this was an open area between 2 doors, one of which was external and drafty, although this was clearly not the cause of other cold breezes and swirls that were noted as being evidenced around the room. At 11:30, the sound of a deep bell was heard ringing outside the area of the general mine workings, as if calling time or sounding an alarm. This was not heard in the mine shop. 3 of the women complained of a sudden headache at this time, which vanished as strangely as it had started. Shortly afterwards, the room unaccountably went very, very dark, as though all the paraffin lamps and candles had simultaneously dipped their light, or perhaps something had walked in front of them. No reason for this was ever found. Slightly later, at the close of the session, a dog, possibly a collie, was seen fussing around the group by a psychic. Then for quite some time everything went very, very quiet and nothing happened. The draft stopped and the noted energies ceased their perambulations. This was interesting, as the weather outside had worsened to the point of a strong wind and driving rain. Later on in the investigation, the draft and cold started again, and the investigators reported shivering, even whilst near the roaring fire, and again the lights went dim. Checking the trigger objects found the tally on the desk in the mine office had moved from its marked position, as had the one in the middle room, to an even greater amount. Later, this same tally was found to have moved again. The hour spent at the washing floor part of the mine complex occurred at 4 a.m, when the weather had abated somewhat. I did not allow a free wandering over the dangerous rubble and iron-strewn floor, but instead conducted the investigation from the higher level to the west, where the rails from the mine are still in evidence. It was interesting to note that all the party witnessed at least one whitish humanoid shape moving about at a distance of about 100 yards, from one ruinous structure to either the washing stream area or back to another ruinous building, before returning to the starting point. At various times, strange flashes of light were witnessed by various members of the party. No reason for these could ever be discerned. With the weather again worsening, the investigation moved back to the safety of the mine office and shop. Early in the morning, just before venturing to the shieling at first light, there was the impression of a man with a hand axe moving in the woodland above the mine area. The visit to the shieling was more of a courtesy, to show the guests where this was and to tell them of the local folklore of this place. On the return to the mine, everyone was tired, and the investigation had drawn to its natural conclusion.